Hello everyone, welcome to Barca News. It is September 16th, 2025 and Barcelona have appointed a new general manager as Laporta looks to restructure the club. Also, bad news in regards to Lamine Yamal's injury. And finally, Barcelona have announced which stadium will be playing at next match, and also reports stating which stadium we're going to be playing at during the Champions League clash against PSG. We have a lot to discuss, so let's begin. Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Mo. We'll begin this video with the news that Barcelona, or Joan Laporta and his board of directors, have appointed a new general manager. And it's no other than this guy you see on your screen, whose name is Manel del Rios, and he will be occupying this new position of general manager of FC Barcelona as Joan Laporta and a board of directors look to restructure how the club is managed. And this picture right here, or this structure, was obtained from internal sources at the club that show kind of the new organization of the leadership at the club. Of course, at the top we have the president, Joan Laporta. Under him we see the president's cabinet, the person in charge of football air sector, the deco. There's the board of directors, there's the treasurer for Ferran Oliver, and right next to him you see the general, it says director general, which is in Spanish, but it's the general manager, Manel del Rio, who's gonna supervise the following departments under him. Barca Identity, who's headed by Paloma Mikadze, the finance department headed by Marcel Ramirez, the sponsorship department headed by Marc Bruish, etc., etc., etc. You see also BLM, the legal department, the social department, the other sports. So as you can see, Manel del Rio will be in charge of many of the departments, and of course he will be directly under Joan Laporta, which means he will report directly to the president. And of course this is an effort by Joan Laporta to restructure how the club is managed and how the club is ran ahead of the 2026 elections. Now I have to say, I definitely welcome this. I think we've needed someone. Ideally it would have been CEO, but a general manager. A lot of Premier League clubs have general managers, so I welcome the fact that Joan Laporta has finally assigned someone to oversee many of the other departments, something that Laporta was kind of taking upon himself to do everything. You cannot operate in a club like that. You cannot do everything. You have to delegate. So I'm really happy to see Joan Laporta finally doing this. Of course, it would have been much nicer had he done this years ago when our CEO quit. Now he's doing it, of course, for election purposes, but I guess better late than never. Now, speaking of elections, as you know, one of the main contenders, or one of the main candidates that will be running against Joan Laporta is, of course, Victor Font, someone we've been talking about a lot. He ran against Joan Laporta in the last election. He lost. He most likely going to be running again. But the news is not in regards to Victor Font specifically. The news is that Victor Font has now allied himself with a former Barcelona board director member, who's this guy on your screen, whose name is Jaume Guardiola. He was the person, the key person who oversaw the financial recovery under Joan Laporta between the years 2021 and 2022. And in fact, he was key in helping the club get out of the financial hole, or at least starting to get the club out of the financial hole they were in. He was also key in securing the bond for Joan Laporta that allowed him to run as a president. Because if you don't know this, when you run for president, you have to put up a certain amount of money as a bond, kind of like, if you mess up, then the club gets to keep the bond because you messed up so terribly. So Jaume Guardiola was the person who was key to secure the bond so Joan Laporta can run and become president. And again, he was key in helping the club get out of the financial hole they were in. He eventually left the club due to disagreements with Joan Laporta, and now he has joined Victor Font. So it looks like Victor Font allying himself with former Laporta board of director members. We'll see how this election will shape up. Now, on to more news, because, ladies and gentlemen, Barcelona have officially announced what stadium will be playing during the next La Liga match, which will be against Getafe, and it's, as we expected, at the Estadi Johan Cruyff, which is where we not only played the Joan Gamper Trophy match, but also where we played Sunday's match against Valencia, where Barcelona won 6-0. Now, as you know, the Camp Nou has yet to receive the license, even though Barcelona have submitted the certificate of completion to the city, saying that, hey, the sections are ready, please inspect it. The city still have to go, send their inspectors, inspect everything. And if everything looks good, everything is up to code, then the city will issue the permit. And if not, they'll tell the club, no, you need to go back and fix this. Hopefully, when the inspection happens, they'll say everything's good. We can get our permit. That way we can return. But for now, the Getafe match next weekend will be played at the Estadio Johan Cruyff. And Barcelona are now expecting to return to the Camp Nou for the Real Sociedad match, which is the match after the Getafe one. Right now we have Newcastle in the Champions League, Getafe, followed by Real Sociedad. So obviously Newcastle match away, Getafe at the Estadio Johan Cruyff, and hopefully Real Sociedad at the Camp Nou. Now, despite this, Barcelona will be playing the Champions League match against PSG at the Olympic Stadium in Montjuic. And you might say, Mo, what are you talking about? PSG match is after Real Sociedad, and if Barcelona are hoping and aiming to return to the Camp Nou to the match against Real Sociedad, which is before the PSG, why would they play the PSG match at the Montjuic Stadium and not at the Camp Nou? Well, the reason is because, as you know, the return to the Camp Nou will be partial. It's only going to be 27,000 people, and that will not allow Barcelona to honor the agreement that they have in regards to visitors' tickets. You know, every match, the club hosting the match, they have an agreement with UEFA and with other European clubs to allot the visiting team a certain amount of visitor tickets. If they play at the Camp Nou, they won't be able to fulfill that agreement. You know, kind of like what happened at the Estadio Johan Cruyff, where they were only able to give the Valencia fans 290 tickets. So that's not going to work in the Champions League. So they are looking to play the PSG match at the Olympic Stadium, and hopefully the following Champions League match, the following home match at the Champions League, hopefully we'll be back at the Camp Nou with a bigger capacity, hopefully Phase 1B, which is required by UEFA, which will, of course, host 45,000 people. Now, more news, because it is not looking good for Lamine Yamal. And speaking of the Champions League, it looks like the Barcelona star will miss the match against Newcastle. As you know, he picked up an injury while on international duty with Spain. He has a back injury. He was ruled out of the match against Valencia. There was hopes that he could return against Newcastle, but he will be ruled out against Newcastle. And in fact, it looks like the injury is worse than what we initially expected, because it looks like Lamine Yamal, the goal for Lamine Yamal to return will be against PSG, which means he also will miss the match against Getafe, the match against Real Sociedad, and the goal is for him to return against PSG in the Champions League. Now, the other player who also came back injured from the FIFA international break was, of course, Frenkie de Jong, who, as I told you during yesterday's podcast, has started with training with the group, and he's expected to be available for the match against Newcastle on Thursday. Now, speaking of injuries, we do have another injured player who's joined the list, which is no other than Guille Fernandez, one of the Fernandez cousins, the cousin of Tony Fernandez, someone that has been training exclusively with the first team, someone that did the preseason with the first team and even traveled to Asia with the team for the preseason tour. And while he has suffered an ankle injury while playing with Barca Athletic, which will mean that he will miss 1 month. So bad news for Guille Fernandez, who was getting, a lot of attention under Flick, and now will be out for a month. Now, speaking of the academy players, we do have to talk about Xavi Espart, the 18-year-old right back, who can also play as a center midfielder and defensive midfielder, someone that just renewed recently with the club until 2028. And the news is that today he was spotted training with the first team under Hansi Flick. Flick calling up Xavi Espart to first team training, which of course has raised a lot of eyebrows. What is he doing there? Is Flick, planning to use him more? Is Flick trying to test him out, see what he has to offer? Of course, time will tell, but Xavi Espart being seen training with the first team. Now, we will end today's video with the news that we now know the artist that will feature on the Barcelona kit for a Clásico match. As you know, Barcelona have been doing collaboration with artists for every Clásico match, where instead of the Spotify logo, the logo of that artist appears on the kit. And well, it seems like it's gonna be no other than Ed Sheeran, someone who was actually considered for the last El Clasico match, but it ended up being, who was it, the last one? Let me remember. Travis Scott. I don't know why I forgot about Travis Scott, but it ended up being Travis Scott. Ed Sheeran was also considered, and now it looks like Ed Sheeran will be the artist to appear on the Barcelona kit for the October El Clasico match, where hopefully Barcelona will once again teach Real Madrid how beautiful football is played. Anyways, that is all for this video. We'll be uploading another video in a few moments, so stay tuned to the channel. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, drop a comment, and as always, Visca Barça.